All right. Welcome to episode number 25 of the Jake Blanchard podcast. We are proudly brought to you by Fellowship Brand Premium Men's Grooming Products. Go check them out at fellowshipbrand.com or on Instagram at fellowship_brand and try their selection of oils and balms for your beard. I'm all about that Mariner life. That's what I wear today. That's what my favorite is. So go out and join the Fellowship today. My guest today is Kris Gethin. He is the world's most recognized transformation expert. He's done over 150 million users have used his transformation program and to transform their bodies regardless of their circumstances. He is the CEO of Kaged Supplements. He's the co-founder of Kris Gethin Gyms. He's a founder of Health Kik. He hosts the Knowledge and Mileage podcast. He's a celebrity trainer. He's contributor. You might see his work in some of the largest fitness magazines in the world. And he's a best-selling author and bodybuilding.com's most influential person. He spent 20 years as a natural bodybuilder and just does all kinds of really cool, interesting stuff and making massive impact to folks' lives. So I'm so excited to have him on today, talking about getting results, talking about mindset, and just unpacking his deep and expansive knowledge in the fitness world and what motivates people. So Kris, thank you for joining the podcast today, my friend.
Thank you for having me on, Jake. I really appreciate it. Excited to share a little bit with your viewers and listeners.
Yeah. So first off, you're walking right now. Maybe talk a little bit about what you're doing here. Like how often do you do this during the day?
I'll do it a couple of times a day. You know, basically I'm on a treadmill desk at the moment. It only goes like 2 miles an hour. 2 miles an hour. It's only slow, so I can still type while I'm on the computer. So I try to do some low-level activity throughout the day. You know, if we look at any of the blue zones where people live to a disproportionate age around the world, and whether that be Okinawa or Sardinia, or even in Yorba Linda, we see people, plenty of centurions living healthy lives, and they do low-level activity throughout the day. They're not going to CrossFit boxes. They're not necessarily doing Peloton classes, but they're doing some type of movement. So I try to move as much as I can, and I had an ice bath this morning, so I'm a bit wrapped up because it takes me about 4 hours to defrost after one.
How long are you getting in the ice bath for?
It'll be about 3 minutes. I'll jump in no longer than that, because the ice bath that I have at the moment is very, very cold. So, you know, at the moment in Idaho, as we know, it's winter, so we have free ice. But I have something that's called the Morozko Forge. So It gets about 10 degrees lower than, you know, what you'd get in a conventional ice bath filled with ice. So it is pretty darn cold, and has about 5 inches of ice at the bottom of it.
Wow. Yeah. I've got I just recently got back into taking cold plunges. I got a horse trough out back, a 2x6x2 plunge tank, and I get out of my infrared sauna, you know, dry off, and then hop into that thing for a couple minutes. But I haven't gotten up to 3 minutes yet. I've pushed myself that far, but I've been doing like a minute and a half, 2 minutes as I'm building back up to it. But it's all breathing, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing with it.
Yeah, and that's still good. A minute and a half is really good. You know, as long as the most important thing is that you submerge your neck. You know, a lot of people can go, anybody could go in there for a duration of time, just submerging their torso, but you've got to get underneath, up to your chin, so you can really tone your vagal nerve. And, that's what's really going to help with your fight or flight response. So it puts you in a better parasympathetic state during the day, lower your cortisol levels, you know, stabilize your blood sugar levels, and mobilize those fatty acids. So, that's still good going. You know, as long as you get over that 30 seconds of that hyperventilation and panic, you're in a good place. And like you said, you just got to control that breathing, and box breathing seems to be the easiest for most to control.
Dude, you are already dropping knowledge bombs. What a wealth of knowledge. See, I go up right here to about my collarbone, but you're saying make sure I'm going all the way down into my neck.
You got to tone your vagal nerve. That's the most important part if you want emotional stability out of it. And that is my main thing that I want from it, is emotional stability. I want to feel good throughout the day. And I find by doing so, having that ice bath up to the neck really, really does help that. You know, I deal with a lot of clients that not only want to transform themselves physically, but they're dealing with anxiety, depression, especially during this time of the craziness that's going on in the world. So, there's a lot of people out there that are on different types of medication, but I never really see them kind of getting better or getting off the medication. And that's my job is obviously I'm not a physician or doctor, but I want people to feel better. And I find that is one of the number one contributors. As much as they don't want to do it, once they get used to it, they feel the benefits, they become addicted to another type of drug, which I feel is a little bit better for people long term.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, you are, again, just a wealth of knowledge in health and fitness, and you seem ever curious. You seem like somebody who's always looking to kind of bolt on something new, explore different avenues of what's going on, different ways of improving and maximizing yourself. Like how did you get started on this journey? Is this something you've done since childhood, or is this something that you've kind of grown into? Let's maybe reflect for a moment on what this has been like.
Yeah, I wasn't into this in childhood at all. I'd say the only form of physical activity that I used to do growing up was out of necessity because I used to race motocross. However, I suffered severe asthma at the time. So in order for me to even be competitive and finish a motocross race, I had to do a lot of physical activity in order for me to do so. So, I'd be doing a lot of running, a lot of swimming, and a lot of mountain biking. That was my training, and bike racing as well. So when I retired from motocross, I was no longer getting that adrenaline fixed that made life bearable. If I'm honest, I was addicted to adrenaline because that made me feel good. And I was a better person to be around even as a kid. So when I had that, I turned to drugs and I turned to alcohol to get the same fix. And obviously that wasn't good for long term. And I could see how it was affecting people around me. They were not going in the right direction. So I thought I'd need to kind of figure this out. And I was dealing with back issues from motocross, which led to a lot of, the alcohol and drugs, I guess, to a certain degree, and a little bit of depression too. And I was putting on weight. And it wasn't until I was going through physiotherapy, which included resistance training to alleviate the pain from my back, did I kind of fall upon, weight training as something that was a new drug to me. So I decided I wanted to learn more and more about it. And the more that I read about it, the more that I realized this was information I was able to retain because it fascinated me. I was interested in it. And this was the first time it ever happened because school, I hated. I couldn't hate school anymore, even if I wanted to. I just wanted to be at home, seeking adventure on the farm, riding my motocross bike. So when I found that I could retain this content, I decided to go to college for 3 years and study it full time. And during that time, I started taking weight training more seriously. And a year and a half later, after picking up that first weight, I competed in my first bodybuilding show, got third place, even though it was an untested show. I had no idea there was any, a such thing as a natural show or a drug tested show. So when I realized there was actually drug tested shows, I continued competing in bodybuilding for the next 10 years. And that's kind of what started me down the track of this fascination of what you can do with your body, with your health, with your mind, and how it has a transverse effect into other areas of your life. So that transcendence effect, sorry. And so, I've just been very curious since.
And then, so at some point in time, that curiosity manifested itself into sharing this knowledge with others, right? And writing and participating in the fitness community. What was that transition like from going from gathering knowledge to starting to distill information and then sharing it with masses?
Well, to begin with, I was just doing one-on-one training. So it was just a career. It wasn't so much, I really wanted to get this out. I just wanted to make a living out of doing this as opposed to working in a wood furniture factory or working on a building site or working in an aluminium factory, because I had all these jobs. But they were dead-end jobs to me. They didn't satisfy me. I wasn't passionate about waking up and clocking in the morning. So I wanted to make this a career. But then after I had a lot of success with clients transforming, some of them won, like I had a male and a female win the Body for Life contest. I thought, okay, how can I reach out to more people? And that's when I thought, okay, I will teach myself how to write. And I bought, I think it was Merriam-Webster's book on journalistic writing, and I taught myself how to write. And when I started getting my content published in magazines, that was very fulfilling for me. I was excited, did it give me did it rub my ego? Yeah, probably did.
Yeah.
I was saving these magazines, and at the time I was living in Australia, and I was sending them back to my parents. My mum would keep them all. And, that's when I thought, okay, now I want to move away from one-on-one training and just write full-time for these magazines, because I had a huge passion in bodybuilding and following bodybuilding. And more so, weirdly enough, the athletes that weren't tested. I wanted to see the freaks. I would never go to a natural bodybuilding show and watch it, because to me that was too attainable. I'd attained that, and I could attain that. I wanted to see something that was unattainable, and I wanted to write about that and feature that. So that's where I started to move along, and decided, okay, if I really want to get into the depth of this, I've got to be at the mecca of bodybuilding, which is Venice, California. So that's when I decided to kind of risk everything, move there, and try to get myself a full-time gig as a writer, and then maybe later as a photographer for like the biggest publications at that time, which was Flex and Muscle and Fitness, which I eventually did 6 months later of harassment.
That's an awesome story, man. So you're a competitive person in your core. Obviously, that's from your days of motocross, and then obviously as you gravitated, you definitely created some gravity around fitness. Like, hey, I'm good at this. Oh, hey, I'm really interested in this. Hey, look, there's all these subcultures and facets of this. Let me explore those types of things. Like, have you ever put your arms around, like, what is that driver? What is that motivator inside of you that makes you wake up in the morning and just be wild about this particular industry?
Yeah, because it makes me feel good. It makes life a little bit more manageable. And like, I'm not the happiest person in the world, and I'm okay with that. However, if I didn't have this, I know that life would definitely be a white knuckle ride without it. So I do it for, selfish purposes, but, I understand that in doing so, it can be selfless because it helps people. People do contact me and say, sometimes it changes their lives. Sometimes it's saved their life even. So, it's a relationship that I know that is long-term, and it's, it's got compromise in it. And like I said, I feel very, very lucky to do what I'm able to do that puts a roof over my head and helps people, but it really helps myself as well. If I was still that person that was working in a wood furniture warehouse, I'm not being condescending to people who have factory jobs, but would I still be here? I don't know. I have no idea. So, but I'm doing something now that is fulfilling, that feeds my lifeline. So that's how I kind of wrap my arms around it. And because it's kind of individualized, it's a personalized journey. I've never done well in team sports or team environments. That's why I did, motocross. I later did downhill mountain biking, then obviously bodybuilding, and now a little bit of Ironman triathlon, because it's an individual journey. It's something that I can go out and just have pressure on my own shoulders without taking on the pressure from someone else and feeling pressure to perform for others. It's very individualized, and I just kind of like that introspective journey.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think the natural next question is, you've kind of built, for lack of better words, an empire around this as well, with the standpoint of your supplement line, as well as your gyms, and you've got this Health Kik platform. And just to give you a little context, I reached out to someone I know who's actually a member of Health Kik and takes your supplements on a regular basis. And I asked him, I said, hey, like, I'm prepping for this podcast. Like, what's your perspective? What's a good question to ask? And this guy's name's Kevin. So shout out to Kevin, but he's like, dude, he's like, these best supplements I've taken. He goes, and the program is easy to follow. It's sustaining it's helped me sustain fitness in my life and helps me achieve my goals, When you hear things like this, which I imagine is on a regular basis, that you have people that are like, your products are great, your services are great. Maybe help me kind of understand what it's like to build that, um, to build those brands and then to get that kind of feedback back, especially in an industry that's super saturated and confusing as all get out to people who are starting their journeys.
Yeah, it's very fulfilling. I could say that. And without sounding like an ass, I try not to listen too much of the positive feedback, as weird as that sounds,
No.
because I don't want anything to ever feed my ego. I've seen how it does that and changes people. So that's why, I do understand I'm much better in front of people instead of with people. So if I'm going to do a seminar or on a talk, I love doing that. Actually, it really does give me a buzz. But as soon as it's done, if there's a back exit, I will take that, because I don't want to hear too much of the accolades without me sounding egotistical by saying that, because I don't want to take too much of it on board. I'd prefer you to tell me what I'm not doing instead of what I am doing.
Okay.
Because that is what's going to feed me and make me provide better supplements. If you're telling me that this flavor is not good or the mixability isn't good, then I'm going to work well to improve it. If you're telling me it's amazing and that's it, then I don't want to become too satisfied and then nothing change, nothing evolve. So it's a little bit weird like that. That's why whenever I've done expos, sometimes maybe I've done them with bodybuilding.com in the past. Everybody goes to the team dinner and whatever after. I'm usually back at my hotel room or at the gym or something like that, because, I've got to get rid of a lot of the noise that I've heard throughout the day, which may sound weird, but it's just how I deal with things.
I can relate. Like I definitely try to strip those things out so that, I can see where I'm going. Like it's tough to get some of that feedback sometimes around positivity. I see it, I acknowledge it. I'm like, yes, but then, okay, move on. What's now? What's next? Because I have to be driven as an individual in that way too. So I certainly relate to the sentiment.
Yeah, it's very hard to explain though, isn't it, sometimes, because you don't want to sound like you're a hierarchy or anything like that, and you don't want to sound like an ass at the same time, because you really do appreciate it. Without those people and without that feedback, you're not going anywhere. There's no doubt about it, especially in today's age of social platforms and social networking. So it is an essential part of it, but there's necessities to it as well that, you've got to take on board and you've got to disregard others.
Yeah. So specifically with your supplements, and just curious here, what is the differentiator? There's so many different brands and things out there. What was your mindset in going in and launching this brand several years ago?
So before I launched it, I was mixing together a lot of my own straight fill formulations and ingredients that I was getting, the raw powders. But I understand that a lot of people are not going to do that. They're not going to be in the same position to do that. So my mindset was, how can I merge the health sector with the sports performance sector? Because there's a huge disconnect between them both. However, they're all part of the health and fitness industry. However, there wasn't any correlation of health with a lot of the sports supplements. So I wanted to make sure that I could bridge that gap. And I think that's why we do so well in like Vitamin Shop, for instance, because I wanted organic ingredients. I wanted fermented ingredients, fermented extraction, natural flavors, natural colors, and basically certify every product with every certification that's available, whether it be for heavy metal contaminants, whether it be for third-party testing, whether it be for banned substances, whatever. I knew it definitely wasn't going to be the cheapest way to go, and I probably wasn't going to make a living out of this. But if it's feeding my purpose, because I can get income from my investments or whatever else I do on the side, then that's going to make me feel good that I'm feeding something. And of course, if I do decide to exit many years from now, then maybe I'll get a payday there. But at this moment, that's not my purpose. This is feeding my purpose of providing something that people kind of no longer have to put their hands together and hope what is in the tub is actually what they're paying for, but they actually get the efficacious that is written on the label. Because I understand that people sometimes work their ass off just to afford those supplements when they can't really afford them. It's the same if somebody employs me as their coach. I have to take that very, very seriously, because I know not everybody out there can afford me, but they do whatever they can to afford me. Maybe they've borrowed money from somebody. I don't know. So I have to take that very, very seriously. And that's what I do with the supplements. So I don't think, okay, I'm just going to put something out there and lace my pocket and have a good time and drive around in a sports car, because that's not going to make me get to my retirement age and go, you know what, I have no regrets. That will probably fuel me with a lot of them, and I don't want that.
That is such a cool perspective. Thanks for sharing that. The next thing I wanted to touch on was biohacking. And we talked a little bit about the cold bath kind of here at the beginning. I know that is in the general kind of categorization of things that individuals can do in order to start tapping into this untapped potential of the body. And you know, I recently, about a year ago or whenever it came out, I bought Ben Greenfield's book, Boundless. And I keep that as a coffee table book because I'm like reading through it all the time. And then I hear you. I mean, I'm following you on social media, man, Guy, you talk about your internal age. You talk about all these like different things. You've got published materials too around like the 15 things that you should be doing, body hacking for bodybuilders, those kinds of things. Maybe talk about this and help folks who don't really understand biohacking, understand like what it is. And then I'd love to hear your perspective and maybe expanding on your journey within biohacking.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, that's a great book, but you're not traveling anywhere with it.
It's big.
Yeah, that is a coffee table in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ben's a great guy. I did a tour with him last year in India, and you know, the guy's a wealth of knowledge, obviously. But the reason why I kind of fell into this is this kind of very similar story to how I fell into bodybuilding by accident. That was through injury, and this one was through mold contamination. So I got diagnosed with mold toxicity in 2014, because for over a year there, I didn't know what was going on. I was trying to self-diagnose. I tried every supplement, and I even moved on to some medication there for a while because I was desperate. And I was only sleeping for about 3 hours a night. The way that I would compare it was going on like a 12-hour flight every single night. You know that you're going to get disturbed. You know that you'd wake up and think, God, am I almost there? But you're only 30 minutes into the flight. That's what sleeping was like for me. And it definitely didn't do me any favors. I used to try to feed off it, because I'd think, okay, I'm on no sleep, but I'm still not going to tell you I'm tired. I'm still going to outwork you on the gym. I'm going to bury you when it comes to work output. And that's how I'd think from it. I'd think, okay, you're just going to push, push, push. But I was burning a candle at both ends, and then I wasn't a good person to be around, because like I'm always on the edge. And it wasn't until I was told about this doctor called Dr. Spanaug in Oldsmar, Florida, who specializes in mold toxicity and Lyme's disease. And, you know, my before and after pictures are fat and thin. His before would be like someone going in a wheelchair, and 6 months later, they're walking out of there. They couldn't tell the time in there because of Alzheimer's or whatever, but they're telling it on the way out. So when I went and, you know, had like 60 blood tests in the first day, stool samples, urine, saliva, everything, we realized that I had mold toxicity. So I stayed there for 6 weeks to go through this kind of detoxification protocol. And that's when my biohacking journey started, specifically in 2014, to look where are molds? Is it in the coffee? Yes, it is. It's in wine, it's in chocolate, it's in grains, especially in the US, because we have different values here in compared to Europe, for instance. So that's when I really started to think, okay, well, what I'm doing from a bodybuilder's perspective, is that hindering me or helping me? And there's a lot of things that was hindering me. You know, I wasn't looking at the sources of the food that I was eating. I didn't care if it was organic or grass-fed or humane raised or wild caught. So I started looking into those things. And when I started applying those things, along with being a little bit more intuitive to my body and my brain, that's when I realized, okay, there's potential here for me to get much better by myself. Because if Dr. Spanaug had his way, he would have had me there for 6 months. And believe me, it's not cheap staying at his clinic. So I decided to do whatever I could to kind of work upon myself. And in doing so, I noticed that all of a sudden the inflammation that I had in my joints gone. And I thought that was just from weight training and bodybuilding, and it was just part of the parcel. I felt, I started to think clearer. I wasn't umming and ahhing about my words. I felt better, more confident. I was definitely a better person to be around, had more energy. I was sleeping better. And, I'd become very attuned to myself. So I found that, okay, I know that I do have electrosensitivity. And I realized that over a couple of occasions, staying in hotels, going to like a music festival, where like several days later, I'd feel like shit. And, like dealing with a hangover, even though I hadn't drunk any alcohol. So that's when I decided, okay, let's see what happens then with my sleep and my sleep cycles if I start blocking EMF and switching off the Wi-Fi router and all these things, and noticing that those started going in the right direction. So I started really going down the rabbit hole of then earthing myself on a daily basis. If I can't do it outside, it's inside. Setting my circadian rhythm with red light therapy and doing what you do with your infrared sauna, detoxifying, because I noticed that I had very high levels of heavy metal contaminants in my system, mostly from my teeth, unfortunately, and metal fillings in there. So going through this collating protocol, it just kind of, spiraled out of in control, I'd say, so spiraled in control, where I started just quantifying absolutely everything. And people could say it's an obsession, but I love that obsession. It's healthy. And it's something that I can then share to others who may have problems with their blood sugar levels. So I either tell them, okay, well, try wearing a 24-hour blood glucose monitor now, because you don't have to be a diabetic to wear one. So there's just various things that I just absolutely love, because I feel like I'm starting bodybuilding all over again.
That is super awesome. Like, so you've been doing this for a while, man. You've been unpacking this for 6 or 7 years of just like trying different things on yourself and figuring out what works and seeing how you're feeling inside, like mental clarity, everything.
Yeah. And, of course, I'll definitely go by instincts, but I'll go by quantification as well. So we have these things available, such as the Aura Ring, where we can quantify our sleep, and our blood glucose monitors and our heart rate variability. Yeah. So I'd like to look at all these kind of markers and inflammatory markers through our blood tests, our food allergy tests. And obviously one thing that I have done every year is like a biological age test. So it's a glycan age test, which tells me what my biological age is over my chronological age. And every year I've been able to reduce my biological age. And my most recent test that I had about 6 months ago showed that my biological age is 25, even though my chronological is 46. So now the company who has seen this data wants to do a pilot. Well, I actually am in the middle of doing a pilot study now with my clients to show how I'm able to attain that, because it's very unusual for somebody who competes in athletics to get a lower biological age test as I have, because of all the stress that we put our bodies through. So, you can combine the both. Maybe it's with fasting. Maybe it's with things that are going to promote your AMPK pathways and reduce your mTOR signaling pathways. And starting with the ice bath, putting yourself in a parasympathetic state, being cognizant and being mindful and meditating and managing your stress, and obviously getting plenty of sunlight. And if you can't, then you have to biohack your environment with your infrared panels. And, making sure that we're blocking a lot of these electronic signals and blocking, artificial light, as it's adherent to our circadian rhythm.
So you just touched on something here as well, that it just out of genuine curiosity. My wife and I just recently watched a documentary called Fasting. And they had 6 or 7 different types of fasting, and they kind of unpack the various things that people do, whether it be, religious fasting, whether it be intermittent fasting, whether it be the juice fasts and some of these other things that are out there. And we started incorporating some time restricted eating in our lives over the last 2 weeks. And I'm already feeling benefits from it. I didn't really realize that I was messing up like internal systems of my body by eating, kind of not just throughout the day, but like expanded periods, like before bed or like right when I wake up. So I'm down to like a 10-hour window right now. And so she, And I'm finding mental clarity. I'm finding I'm a lot more calm, and I feel like things are running better. Like, what do you do from a fasting standpoint? Do you work it in? Do you take 3 days off of eating? Like, how do you work that in?
All depends how I feel that year.
Okay.
So I followed it for, like I did it along with keto for about 8 months last year. So I was doing about a 16-hour fast. I did like a 5-day fast as well. That was a little bit more like Dr. Volta Longo's
Okay.
fast. And I did a couple of like 22-hour fast, but it's usually around 16 hours. But that would be a controlled fast. So what I would do, because of course I'm weight training, I'm a little bit heavier than the average person. I'm a little bit more, I have more athletic output than the general person as well. So I'd control my fast. And what I mean with controlled fasting, I would drink essential amino acids and glutamine during that fast. Okay. Because if I'm going through so much, muscle breakdown, I need to ensure that I am anti-catabolic. So I'm not necessarily, heavily signaling my mTOR pathways, but I am preventing that muscle breakdown, and I'm giving my digestive system a good break. And I'm still able to go through autophagy and clean up the folded proteins, my bad DNA, have a good clean house. And I would feel so much better for it. But right now, at the moment, because I've gone through a phase of really trying to build as much possible, maintain as much muscle as possible, because I just did something called a 60-day shred where I was training from home exclusively with just body weight, resistance band, and a pair of dumbbells, then I knew it was going to be a little bit harder for me to maintain and build muscle during that time. So what I've been doing is, like, on my non-training days is fasting. So do like a 16-hour fast. And then on my training days, I'm not fasting, because I really wanted to put myself into an anabolic environment, had to get ready for photo shoots and stuff like that as well. So have to put on the bodybuilder's mindset again. So I try to balance both out as much as I can. But what I've noticed now, because I eat that much more quality protein, quality foods, I should say, and making sure that I'm focusing on just quality supplements, the supplements that I need, not just taking everything that's on the shelves, that I don't eat half the amount of food as I used to, because I'm assimilating it that much more, because it's much more nutrient dense. So I'm getting fulfilled that much more. So I don't have to have so much volume, because I'm focusing on the quality.
Well, that's a cool perspective. And obviously, like, I think it just draws into the point of, like, you got to figure out what works for you, right? Like what works for Kris is Kris has some very specific goals, is building some very specific programs, and you work fasting in that way. Like for me, my wife and I are talking about doing every quarter doing a multi-day, like whether 3 to 5 day fasting, and then just eating in time restrictive windows and seeing how that works. And the general consensus from people I've talked to is that's a pretty decent strategy to just get started with it, though there's a lot of variations.
Yeah, a person that I'll tell that you should follow is a guy, a very good friend of mine called Sean Wells.
Okay.
Sean Wells, and he's been on keto probably about 25 years now, because he's a phenomenal formulator in the industry, supplement formulator. But he had a benign tumor he was diagnosed with about 25 years ago. So he went strict keto from that point onwards. And he'll often do extended fast, and he'll get the community involved as well. And I think that's the essential part. You need to have that community to give you that justification to stay accountable and be transparent, to fulfill a 5-day fast. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult. I did it myself, and it was hard.
Yeah.
It was really tough. You want to make sure that you're probably having a non-training week during that time, because I continued to train, continued to do my cardio, and it was a struggle. It really, really was. But I think something like that is good, because not only are you doing something like that, which is potentially very, very good for you, it's great for you mentally as well, because the sense of accomplishment that you have after something like that, you're like, I can accomplish anything now. You're bulletproof, you're unstoppable. And it really does have that transcendence effect. So, I always say to, myself and my clients, try to be harder to kill. Do whatever you can to condition your resolve. And that's just one of them.
So, as I'm doing a time check here, and again, so appreciative of you carving out some time with me today. Just wondering, with COVID and with folks going inside, going indoors, what I have witnessed is a lot of a lack of emotional resolve or resiliency. And I've seen a lot of people around me put on weight and have just some motivational kind of challenges. What have you seen maybe in the same vein of thinking? And then what advice would you give to individuals who kind of need to spark up that fire internally and make some positive changes if they want to have better outcomes?
Yeah, for sure. Well, number one, they need to turn those weaknesses into their commitments so that can become their weapon. But number one, starting from scratch, you need, as cliche as it may sound, is writing everything down. Like, I've created a journal that I have for maybe clients or people in Health Kik. It's very specific that you have to populate certain areas every single day of your short-term goals. So you can go to bed at night and go, yes, I succeeded. You just need those little wins. And then maybe create like a vision board. Okay, here we are in January 2021. Where do you want to be by the end of this year or January 2022, and have images, whether it be a home, whether it be a physique, whether it be a holiday, whether it be a family, whatever it is, in some way you can see it every day. So I would have it underneath my window in my office here, and I'd see it every single day to help just, that subconscious reminder that is there every day. And then you just write down those goals daily, just so you can look at them and go, okay, people around me may not understand or relate, but I can relate to myself. And I think what is very important is that you switch everything off. Switch your devices off. Make sure that you don't have your devices on for an hour before you go to bed, an hour after you wake up in the morning, so you can listen to the thoughts in your brain of what you really want without distraction. Because unfortunately, we don't have time to really think our goals through and think, wow, the lifespan that we have is really short on this earth. And these decisions that I'm going to be making today could potentially make them shorter and shorter and shorter, or with a lot of complications, which is going to lead for me to go that retirement village very, very early. You can really put that into perspective. So I think those are the places we really need to start. And don't use the gyms being closed down or anything like that as an excuse. That's why, okay, I could go to the gyms if I wanted to, but I decided to train from home for, a duration of time to show people you can follow these workouts with me, and I'm going to show you in real time that I am going to transform, because we are controlling our environment here instead of getting controlled by it out there. And that's the problem. People turn on the TV, they look at the newspaper, they go online, and their perception of what is going on out there really does riddle with them. And, we should know that we can't listen to the media and take it all as gospel. We have to be informed, I understand that, but we have to make our own decisions based on what we feel is right, not what our neighbor thinks.
I love it. I love it, man. Hey, where's the best place for people to go and learn about you, learn about your brands, the businesses, the things that you're doing, and maybe get started on their health journey?
Sure. If people want to get access to me, there's a couple of ways to do it, or if they want coaching or anything like that. Or like you said, my books, such as the biohacking for bodybuilders, is go to healthkik.com, and that is spelled HEALTHKIK.com.
Okay.
They can find me on Instagram, Kris Gethin, and my brands are pretty much linked from there: Cage Muscle and the gyms.
Absolutely. Hey, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your knowledge, just kind of walking me through a journey of what makes you tick. What this podcast is all about is just honing in on kind of business mindset, motivation, and you've certainly been a pleasure to have on. So I appreciate your time, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much, Jake. I appreciate it. Have a great day.